It happened at 4:17 p.m. on a calm September afternoon. The sun was beginning to dip, stretching long shadows across the cracked sidewalks of Northwood's East District. Jamal had been sitting at the dining table, laptop open, finishing an application for a community arts grant. His camera equipment was scattered around the room, lenses and memory cards neatly arranged in the way only photographers or obsessively organized people managed. He lived with a quiet sense of purpose. At 29, Jamal was a freelance photographer building a documentary portfolio on invisible neighborhoods, places people ignored until tragedy forced them to look. His next project was supposed to be about beauty, murals, street musicians, local shops. But the knock on the door, heavy, deliberate, unmistakably official, froze him mid-sentence. He looked through the peephole. 2 officers. Again. His heart sank. He unlocked the door slowly. Evening, officers. Can I? Jamal Wright, the taller one asked. Yes. We need you to come with us for some questioning. Jamal blinked, heartbeat accelerating. About what? A reported burglary on Alman 9th, the second officer replied. Your name was flagged in connection with multiple incidents in the area. What? Jamal stepped back slightly. I don't even go near 9th Street. The tall officer's jaw tightened with impatience. We're not here to debate. Grab your shoes. Jamal stared at them, stunned. This was the 3rd time. 3 times in 6 months. 3 different incidents, none of which he had any connection to. Each time he'd been released with a half apology and a thin explanation. You matched a profile. The system tagged you. We're just following protocol. Protocol. As if that made the fear less suffocating. Jamal swallowed hard. I want to know what data you're using. Why am I flagged for things I didn't do? The officers exchanged a glance. We don't handle the algorithm, the shorter one said. We just respond to its alerts. And that was the moment, the precise second, when Jamal realized something deeper, something darker was happening. He wasn't being watched. He was being predicted. The questioning room smelled faintly of bleach and cheap coffee. Jamal sat alone, breathing deeply to keep his rising panic at bay. He hadn't done anything wrong. He hadn't committed a crime. He hadn't even jaywalked in months. Yet here he was again. The door opened and Detective Carla Ruiz stepped in. She was sharp-eyed, mid-40s, and visibly exhausted, as if she had been fighting too many battles at once. Mr. Wright, she began, sitting across from him. Let's start with where you were today between 2 p.m. and 3 p.m. Jamal exhaled slowly. Editing photos at home. Alone. Again. Ruiz nodded but didn't write anything down. Look, Jamal continued, I need to understand what's happening. Why does your system keep flagging me? Why do I keep getting questioned every time something happens in my neighborhood? Ruiz hesitated, a subtle flicker of guilt crossing her face. You're on a predictive policing list, she finally said. Jamal stared. Hey, what? She folded her hands. Northwood PD uses an algorithm that analyzes crime patterns and identifies individuals most likely to be involved in future incidents, either as offenders or associates. Based on what? Jamal asked sharply. Ruiz sighed. Historical data. Geographical data. Prior reports, even if they didn't lead to charges. Social networks. Arrest patterns in your neighborhood. My neighborhood? Jamal repeated, incredulous. So because I live in a predominantly black area with higher police presence, I get marked as suspicious? Ruiz looked away. Her silence was answer enough. The next evening, Jamal sat with his older sister, Maya, in her small living room. She was a public defender, sharp-witted, relentless, and fiercely protective of him. When he told her everything, she barely blinked. I knew it, she said, pacing the room. They're using it here too. What are you talking about? Jamal asked. She grabbed a stack of papers from her desk. Predictive policing algorithms. They're supposed to be objective, but they're built on decades of biased policing data. Garbage in, garbage out. Jamal stared at her. So the system is biased because the data is biased. Exactly, Maya said. If police historically over-policed black neighborhoods, the algorithm predicts more crime there, so police go there more, so more data comes from that area, so the system reinforces itself. A self-fulfilling prophecy. A trap disguised as technology. She handed him a printed headline. Northwood PD announces crime forecasting AI partnership. Jamal felt anger rise in his chest. I'm being harassed by math, he muttered. Not math, Maya corrected. Bad math. Then she paused, her expression darkening. There's something else, she said. You told me they mentioned burglary on Elm and Ninth? Yes. Jamal, that's where a woman was assaulted during the break-in. His breath caught. They're not just flagging you for theft. They're flagging you for violent crime. Jamal felt his stomach twist in fear. That means next time, Maya continued softly, they might come with guns drawn. 2 weeks passed. Jamal tried to return to work, tried to lose himself in photography, but the fear clung to him like a second skin. He no longer left home at night. He avoided intersections where he'd seen patrol cars. He kept receipts, time-stamped photos, even GPS logs, anything that could prove his innocence preemptively. That was the worst part. The algorithm had turned him into someone who prepared alibis for crimes he hadn't committed. But then, one night, the situation exploded. It was 8:05 p.m. Jamal was driving home from a grocery run, the back seat filled with paper bags and camera gear he'd taken to get repaired. He turned onto Ridge Lane. And instantly, red and blue lights flared behind him. Jamal pulled over, heart pounding. 3 cruisers boxed him in. This time, officers stepped out with weapons drawn. Driver, put your hands where we can see them. Jamal's chest tightened. Oh God, oh God. He slowly raised his hands. The officers advanced. Step out now. Don't shoot. Jamal cried, voice cracking. I didn't do anything. They dragged him from the car, pinned him to the pavement. His groceries spilled across the asphalt. Oranges rolled into the gutter. A box of pasta burst open like confetti. A cold knee dug into his back. A handcuff clicked around his wrist. You're under arrest, the officer said. Suspected involvement in an armed robbery reported 10 minutes ago. Armed robbery. Jamal felt the world spin. That's impossible, he choked. I wasn't. You matched the profile flagged by the system. That sentence again. That cursed sentence. A profile. Not evidence. Not facts. Not witnesses. A profile. The algorithm had predicted he'd be involved in violent crime. The police believed it. And Jamal was becoming guilty by projection. It took 40 agonizing minutes before they realized the real suspect, caught on a camera several blocks away, was a completely different height, weight, and complexion. Jamal was released at the station with a robotic apology. But something had changed. He wasn't just scared. He was furious. You need to sue, Maya said the moment he told her what happened. They used an algorithm to justify excessive force. I want more than a lawsuit, Jamal said quietly. I want the truth. He wanted to expose the system. He wanted to show how flawed and dangerous it was. With Maya's help, he filed public records requests, demanding documentation about the predictive policing program. They expected resistance. They got stone walls. Requests were delayed. Files were redacted into uselessness. Emails went unanswered for weeks. But Maya was stubborn and relentless. Late one night, she stormed into Jamal's apartment with a stack of newly obtained documents. You need to see this, she said. The documents revealed. Jamal had been flagged 17 times in the last year. But the system had marked him as a high-risk individual. The risk scores were based on flawed statistics from the 1990s. His network connections included people he hadn't spoken to in over 10 years. Old classmates, ex-coworkers, neighbors. His neighborhood's high police presence multiplied risk scores automatically. Jamal stared at the pages, horrified. This algorithm isn't predicting crime, he whispered. It's predicting policing. Maya nodded. Exactly. Local journalist Daniel Cho agreed to meet with Jamal after hearing about the wrongful detainment. Daniel was known for investigative work, uncovering corruption, exposing flawed tech policies, and pushing back on institutional secrecy. He listened intently as Jamal explained the repeated detentions, the escalation, the flawed algorithm. This could be huge, Daniel said. But I need more. I need someone inside the department to confirm how the system is actually being used. Jamal shook his head. No one will talk. Daniel smiled faintly. Someone always talks. 3 weeks later, an anonymous source, sent Daniel documents verifying that officers were encouraged to trust the algorithm over their own judgment. One line chilled Jamal to the bone. Algorithmic alerts should be treated as probable cause unless human evidence contradicts strongly. The algorithm had become judge, jury, and psychic. And humans were expected to obey it. The pressure on the police department made everything tense. Officers became defensive. The chief issued public statements insisting the system was highly accurate. Online commenters accused Jamal of exaggeration. Then it happened again. One cold November night, Jamal was returning from a late dinner with Maya when a cruiser pulled behind him. "Not again," he whispered. He slowed. The cruiser slowed. He turned. The cruiser turned. He felt cold sweat run down his spine. Maya looked at him. "Don't stop until you get somewhere public." He nodded. They drove to a gas station with bright lights. But the cruiser flicked its sirens on, forcing Jamal to stop before he reached the pumps. An officer stepped out, hand resting on his holstered weapon. Jamal kept his hands visible. "Sir," the officer said, "your vehicle matched a predictive alert. We need to ask you a few questions." Maya snapped. "He has an attorney, he's done nothing wrong, and this harassment needs to." The officer ignored her. Then another cruiser pulled in behind them. Then another. It felt like déjà vu soaked in terror. Jamal's pulse thundered. He had done nothing wrong. Yet he was surrounded. Again. "What's the alert for this time?" Maya demanded. The officer hesitated. Finally he said, "Attempted homicide." Jamal felt like the air was sucked out of his lungs. "What? Who?" The officer shifted. "We don't have specifics. The alert was triggered by the system. A prediction. Not a crime. Not evidence. A prediction." Something in Jamal broke right there under the flickering gas station lights. He wasn't safe anywhere. Not driving. Not walking. Not existing. The next morning, Daniel Cho published the exposé. He laid everything out. The biased data. The flawed risk scores. The algorithm's inability to distinguish proximity from guilt. The increasing number of false positives. The pressure on officers to trust the system. Jamal's repeated detentions. The near-lethal escalation. The story exploded. National news picked it up. Civil rights groups demanded investigations. The state attorney general opened an inquiry. The mayor suspended the predictive policing program. Within 72 hours, the algorithm was shut down. But not before the police chief held a tense press conference claiming there was no evidence of intentional bias. No one believed him. Life didn't snap back to normal for Jamal. How could it? He started having panic attacks at night. He flinched at sudden noises. He avoided driving after sunset. He kept seeing flashing lights in every reflection. But he fought. He filed civil suits. He spoke at public hearings. He delivered testimony to lawmakers. And slowly the community rallied around him. Strangers thanked him. Neighbors apologized for not noticing sooner. Journalists kept amplifying the issue. One afternoon as he walked through the park with Maya, she said softly, "You changed something, you know?" Jamal looked at her. "Did I?" "Yes. You made people see what they couldn't, or wouldn't, see." He swallowed hard. "I'm still scared." "I know. But I'm not silent." "I know that too."